All right. Welcome to the GitOps Working Group Co-Chairs meeting on September 13th. Guys, here's the quick link for convenience. Yeah, let's pop in our agenda. We know generally what it is, right?
Finish that up, Jay.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's finish GitOps principles RC1 draft.
I need more cinnamon toast crunch.
Awesome.
Sorry.
No, that's totally that's recorded now for all time.
Oh, damn it.
We need more cinnamon toast crunch. Okay. Should I share my Chrome again? Was that helpful?
Yeah, we do that.
Okay. And I guess at least for people watching the video, I don't know if it really makes a big difference on here anyway. Okay. Big question that I had for you all last time was, let's see, what did I do? Oh yeah. Right when we were wrapping up, all I did was added this question because we had changed this sentence, but then never really didn't just change this bit. And somehow when I was like, oh, we'll just use the same word, like syncing automatically, that sounded like it would be very easily confused with this, you know. But if we say pulled automatically, I feel like maybe the language could be different, but I feel like at least something like that would show like that we're talking about actually pulling in those configurations.
I like the idea of pull because that kind of like implies, because we have talked about, is it always going to be pull versus pull and I mean pull versus push, and then we want pull, right? But we talked about that being very kind of like implementation specific, that not necessarily it has to be pull.
Yep.
But like if we say pulled automatically, that's really not applying, that's really not talking about how the reconciliation happens, right? It's talking about that you're fetching the desired state from somewhere.
Yep.
But is that really what the principle is about?
I think the principle is, well, I think it's really just about, I mean, honestly, the principle is mostly about the fact that this process is automatic, that the process of getting those configurations into the runtime environment for your agents is automatic. It's always happening. Or sorry, not that it's always happening, but that it's, sorry, that it happens on its own without you having to trigger it. That's it. So again, I'm still, you know, like there's still a part of me that's like, is it really necessary even to keep, no. But I feel like I don't really have an answer to that, except that it does seem that it was really important for us and for the group and in the principles to begin with, that to say that this process of reconciliation is automatic and continuous, you know, and we had previously smashed them together to say, well, maybe we don't need it broken out into a separate step to say that the configurations need to be automatically, you know, brought into the runtime for the agents. Maybe we can just simply say that the agents automatically do it. And then that caused a bunch of contention. And so I think that's why we recommended going back to keeping them separate. I don't
No,
have,
the question is, would it be, is it an issue of it being pulled automatically? Or is it an issue of it being applied automatically?
yeah, I think in this case,
Or synced automatically.
yeah, it is ultimately synced automatically or ultimately primarily pulled automatically. But yeah, we did say that there could be cases where that message might be sent, like, for example, in the case of cluster API, you know?
I like synced automatically. I don't, and a matter of fact is I do not necessarily agree that synced automatically produces confusion against continuously reconciled, because one is about automation, the other one is about continuous reconciliation. So I don't necessarily agree that synced automatically overlaps with continuously reconciled.
Yeah. Do you think we should use it then in the same, do you think we should put it in the same order as continuously reconciled and make it automatically synced or reconciled continuously?
That's a good question.
I mean, that's such a nitpick. It doesn't
The
matter.
desired states must be automatically syncing. I don't mind, like the desired state of the GitOps management system must be automatically synced and continuously. Yeah, I would flip it around just to keep kind of like,
Yeah, preference. I mean, it's really the
Yeah.
draft for the maintainers to look at, and people
Mhm.
that will get feedback from the community based on the RC1 too, for the rest of
Mhm.
the group. I just
Mhm.
figure if we put it in, we might as well, if we see something, this is part of what we're doing, right? It's just like finding just little things that
Now-
are not consistent.
The question is, Dan brought up the fact that pull itself, kind of like the word pull, was not present on Friday, right? Dan?
Correct.
What?
You
Correct.
asked on Friday, did we land on removing pull from the principle? And
It never said it. We were
Oh.
just discussing.
Yeah, I
adding
never
it.
said it. We were just wondering if polling is something to mention. And polling is confusing anyway, because you're not necessarily always polling. It's just like that's how it works best most of the time. But there are scenarios where you might have, like, what does it mean to poll versus push when you're managing a resource in AWS from a service in AWS? Is that pushing or is that
Mhm.
polling? Like, they're both on AWS, but they're not. It's not on your cluster deploying to your cluster. So it's a
Oh,
little.
but to be clear, I think like this is the other thing about this is that, like principle 3, as we're talking about, we're only talking about the declarations. We're not talking about we're not talking about the resources that they describe. Just making sure that those declarations are fetched, automatically without you having to trigger it somehow. So I mean, I get what you're saying, but
Yeah, so principle 3 is about getting the desired state to a place where it can be reconciled, which is principle 4.
yeah.
That's the difference. Is one
Yep.
is getting the state there, the other one is actually doing the reconciliation.
Yeah.
well, then
And
if
for-
that's the case, then pull doesn't sound bad, because if we're talking about principle 3 being how do we get the desired state to a place where it can be reconciled, that is always going to be a pull.
Ultimately, yeah. I mean, we said that we were looking at some exceptions, like for example, cluster API, but I actually don't think that's really, when I think about it, I don't think it's really an exception, because it just means that every cluster has to be bootstrapped.
No, and I think
Even your first cluster has to be bootstrapped. It can't pull without your mechanism to pull it.
no, and I think, and for example, when I brought up the cluster API example, it's because we're pushing the reconciliation process. The reconciliation process is actually being like pushed out from a cluster into another.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But that is not. But there, we're not talking about the desired state becoming ready for reconciliation. We're talking about the actual reconciliation process, which I think it's the same scenario that Dan points out, right? When you
Yep.
make an API call to AWS, that is the reconciliation process that
Yeah.
is happening, not the pulling of the state. So
That's right.
considering that, I would actually agree that pulled automatically.
That's what I was thinking.
Is-
That's all I meant earlier. That's what I was thinking. I mean, it's not my hill to die on. It just seemed like it would clarify that. That's all.
So I wonder if in light of that, if it's not syncing between the source and runtime environments, it's between source and runtime agents or GitOps agents. Because if you sync it to your production environment, then what is the agent actually doing? Right? Because you put it on your runtime environment.
Oh, I think I see what you're talking about, Dan. You're talking about, like, for example, if it's syncing like directly into Kubernetes API, then what is the yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess that could be, yeah, that makes sense. I think it would, yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess the agents need to store it somewhere, they need to do something with it. But maybe not, maybe some systems just hold it in memory and just do it constantly. I don't know.
Well, there has to be an agent doing it,
Yeah,
right? So the agent has to have knowledge of the desired state and the actual state, even if that's just in RAM.
yeah.
We're not saying it needs to be stored anywhere. We're just saying that
Yeah. That's true. It needs to be present. It just needs to be present somehow for the agents to use it. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that would make sense for me.
So I almost think actually.
The only yeah.
This blows
Right.
everything up every 2 seconds.
Automatically want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, accurate for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it would be pulled automatically, right? Don't you that? Not synced automatically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think the way Dan just wrote it that's super accurate.
Yeah.
I think
Because now we're not talking about the runtime environment pulling the desired state. We're saying the software agents are pulling the desired state. So we don't have to worry about Amazon relationship.
No, that's true. That's a very good point. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because ultimately, I think the reason it was written the other way previously was because the fourth principle was the header for the fourth principle was just agents, software agents. So I think it was really trying to emphasize the software agents. But I think you're right. It isn't, both of these steps, in fact, happen with agents. No, that's accurate.
And I was thinking, for example, what would happen in an air-gapped environment but that would still be pulled, except that from a local air-gapped source.
Yeah, from a USB drive or whatever.
Even if I'm coming in and kind of pushing a new desired state into this air-gapped environment, the agent would still have to pull it. So
that's correct. Yep. Yeah, at least it seems like, and I'm saying that's correct, like as if I'm some expert. It's really just like, that's what literally no one has debated that part of the process, like not even once in any of these meetings. We just hadn't explicitly said it. I think that's a better way to put it than I was thinking. Changing that description really makes it clear. Yeah, in my opinion.
From source, from their source, from the source.
Let's see, how have we done it before?
From source, I would say, not from their source, because the agents don't have a source. It's the desired state source. The GitOps desired state must come from its source.
Yeah, I really want to say from version control here, but I know we're kind of trying somehow not to use those words. But the source seems fine to me because we clarified that in the principle right before it. So, and by the way, by fine to me, I just mean much more clear than we had, and fine for a draft for RC1. So, right, like our goal here, sorry, I'm just gonna, so many tabs open, it's kind of embarrassing. All right, well, I just wanted to look real quick at the milestones that we have, or the, yeah. So we have issues, milestones. For RC1, our milestone goals were, we wanted to simplify the principal titles. We wanted to resolve the notes and glossary items. We actually have a draft to do that. We could just look at right after this. And then ensure the accessibility of language. So I think and we didn't say consistency here, but I think that was one of the things that we had mentioned earlier that we wanted to how about clarify? What do you think about this before I save it? Clarify main point of each principle.
Sure. Just capitalize the C at the beginning.
Thanks. Clarify language to emphasize the main point of each principle. Maybe just like ensure consistency of language, right? That was one of the things we said, but didn't write in this. Ensure accessibility of language. All language. Okay, cool. That sounds right. Okay, so I guess my question then is, do we have oh yeah, we had kind of a version of this earlier, I believe, like comparing against. And what I remember is that it seemed like we all agreed that that was implied by reconcile with the desired state as the source of truth. Do you have yeah, what are you thinking, Dan, by
By rewriting, sorry. So
Yeah,
I was just
yeah,
thinking that I was just wondering if I could get the actual system state kind of closer. And it kind of feels like tacking source of truth on at the end is like,
it kind of does. I mean,
like, yeah, it's like tacked on. It feels like some other thing.
I mean, we did talk about that as being another principle.
Yeah. But when I do it this second way, which I don't love totally either, for reasons I can't articulate yet, I feel like I understand that I'm doing something to my actual state. I'm operating my actual state against the, like, I don't feel like there's any ambiguity in that would make me think of what the source of truth is. I know what it is.
Wouldn't it be then actions to bring the actual state in line?
Yes, it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. I don't really like the phrase bring it in line. Sounds weird, but as it's telling me I'm looking at actual and desired, and I'm updating the actual. It's not there yet.
What the hell am I doing? I'm being silly. Okay. Some markdown,
I don't
right?
think you can make comments in Markdown.
Oh, right. Right? Like that.
Yeah. Oh, you just do it with HTML. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you just pop in markup. You're right. It's not markdown, but it's still compatible. It's still compliant.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So like okay. The desired state of a GitOps managed system must be source of truth. Right? I mean, that's kind of what we were saying before. If we want to make it extraordinarily clear that that is always the case, and then say something like, I mean, I guess the point of it would be,
Desired state of GitOps managed system must be the source of truth.
yeah, I mean, maybe something like that. I mean, I feel like this could use some more feedback and iterations, but ultimately that's something that we want to say. Either before we said that the correct place would be to put it in the continuously reconciled section, because that's how it's reconciled. But I think you're right. I think it would be equally good, or maybe it would even bring it home more to have it separate.
See, I'm gonna give it another shot, because here, what you're saying is the same as already said, like the desired state of a GitOps managed system is the source of truth, and then you repeat that. But I think what we're trying to say here is,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Instead of like repeating the same phrase, yes, that's it. Yeah, it's like it will always win, it will always take precedence. Yeah, exactly. Just deleted the thing I wrote right before then. But I think this is better. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm happy with if maintainers want to like pour over some of the exact wording or pour over some of the, the sentence structure or whatever. But I think there hasn't been any debate that this is a requirement for GitHub.
Yeah. What do you think about this last one, row 36?
Software agents continuously observe actual state and attempt to apply the desired state. Yeah.
Simple, short.
It is. I'm just trying to. It is. I actually kind of like that better. In fact, that's kind of what it's closer to what was there originally. But the only difference is one of the things that was super important for folks in the group was. Actually, no, this sounds good. Attempt to apply is the exact same thing as initiate actions to reconcile.
Attempt to apply could be initiate actions to apply.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's-
was thinking exactly that.
I don't know what else it gives us, but
I don't know either. I don't,
No, and you know what? I think attempt is more accurate because it's not just initiating actions.
yeah, it's
right?
actually trying.
It's gonna keep trying and it's gonna implement logic to attempt it, not just initiate.
Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't mean a system has to have infinite nodes in order to be compliant, GitOps compliant.
right. Yeah, no, you're right. I like that better than the one right before it. Do you mind?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna withdraw that one.
Just observe actual state. Do you not want to say, let's see. Do we not want to say actual state of the system? Because I don't think we've really clarified that before. Okay, yeah, yeah. Short, sweet. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not losing something, some meaning that I remember being discussed. Could be forgetting something that I don't.
Initiate
yeah.
actions. Initiate actions, okay, could potentially be more broad. It could mean I'm going to send an email to the admin and tell them I need more nodes. Whereas attempting to apply the desired state, you maybe could make an argument that it needs to send an email to an admin to add more nodes, but it seems a little bit more disconnected from.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny? So that we, all right, so check out. Okay, first of all, I agree with you. Second of all, it really is kind of proving how tight some, maybe not exactly the wording, but some of the original principles were, because just check it out. All right. What it actually said was exactly what you're saying. It maintains the system state. It's just a different way of saying it, right? It applies the resources described in the declare. Oh, wait a second. Oh. No, I think the difference is like we're actually talking about where each of these points are made, each of the fine points are made. So in the initial one, it was saying that actions are performed on divergence, right? And then the actual, oh, sorry. Oh, wait, it doesn't say this? Okay, I guess this version does not say alert on divergence. There was an earlier version that did. All right, never mind what I was just saying.
Okay.
Like I can only point to this not because I'm working here, but because this is where it first started.
Yeah,
You know, again, I'm not trying to,
no, it's good. I mean, we want to understand why we said what we did originally. And if we get back to it, that's good. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing if it diverges.
yeah, here we go. This is the one I was thinking of. There was a version
Oh, yeah.
where number 4 is exactly this, pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Ensure correctness could mean a lot of things.
Yeah. I think
Ensure correctness could mean that you've made a declaration that uses too many resources, and that's bad for the environment, and that's not correct.
yeah, no, I agree. I think the wording here is much better, but I'm mainly focusing on this part of it where there's a specific call out to exactly what it's doing when it's not trying to reconcile, when it's not attempting to reconcile, you know?
I want to rewrite this one now to just say, you better come correct.
All correct.
Better come correct.
Yeah. Okay, well, anyway.
Are we good to nuke line 32 then? You guys feel like 34 gets it
I
done?
think so, but my question is, should we, if we're going to, instead of saying like initiate actions, which is like a little bit more open, if we want to say attempt to apply, which I think is actually true, do we also want to just say and alert on divergence, you know? Like, isn't that part of the idea is that we're letting humans know when something went wrong?
Well, this gets to 0.5. like, is that thing that there needs to be alerts is 0.5, or is 0.5 something else? And so maybe actually let's put a pin for the
Okay.
moment in this and go back to 0.5. I wanted to ask you guys, you had the weekend to think about it. Did 0.5 solidify in your brain in any?
Oh,
The
sorry.
closed loop
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, actually, you're right. You're right. Now at least with this proposal, it's 0.6, but because we suggested putting a separating source of truth from this and making it its own principle, which I agree with, by the way. And I think if that's the case,
I don't think we need a separate principle with the rewritten version of continuously reconciled, because it very clearly states that it is the source of truth. We're applying the desired state. That's what we're doing. So then I feel like we don't need it.
yeah, I mean, I think the reason that we wanted to emphasize that before, or that was brought up, is because the principles didn't really quite say that, but that's like the driving force of GitOps that I think has emerged, continued to prove itself over time. You know, that we're not just talking about some multi-directional convergence generally. You know, that was even a confusion with, you know, at least one person in the GitOps working group, if you remember, in one of the issues where I initially wanted to describe it as what we're saying here. That to reconcile the actual state with the desired state. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's enough. I don't know. I mean, I think as long as we like make the point very, very, very clear somehow. I almost don't even care how at this point. as long as it's just super clear that the desired state always wins. You know, it's not something that's,
Yeah, and I do think if we just say the reconciliation states the direction of the reconciliation. The weird thing about source of truth was, as a phrase, it's a very strong phrase. And we actually even have it bolded in there. So it was like, this is such a strong phrase and it's bolded in here in a way that makes it feel like it should be its own thing.
yeah.
But now if we take this line 34 instead, it just explains how reconciliation occurs. And the explanation says where the source's truth is from, but it doesn't say it in such bold language that it feels like a separate thing. I don't think it's an issue of the ideas being too separate. I think it's an issue of the wording making them feel too separate. And I don't think that's there anymore.
Yeah, I think actually I kind of agree with what part of what I'm not actually sure. Okay. I definitely don't want to like bike shed this part, but I think you have a point, at least, that when we were describing actions to reconcile, that does seem to leave some ambiguity if it's not spelled out perfectly. But if you're talking about attempting to apply the desired state to the act, you know, then that's pretty damn clear. I mean, again, just to like look back at prior art. Wait a second, not this one. Sorry. Apply, yeah, this is what it actually said in the GitOps working group initial, what it was started with is, and apply the resources described in the declarative configuration. That's pretty much what we're seeing here, just we're putting the word attempt in there, which resolves, I think anyway, some of the concerns that some other members of the working group had initially, that it may not succeed, right? So I think that resolves that we're just saying it's attempting to instead of just applying them. We're kind of also taking it out of the language of Kubernetes. Kubernetes does apply, but I think that the implication of if you're applying something in Kubernetes, we're talking about something like kube control apply, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it succeeds, but I think we need this to be independent of talking about Kubernetes. So I think,
Yeah.
well, I guess I'm just thinking through what you're saying, and I don't really know why this would be a problem. It is a little less strong. It definitely doesn't kick this. Maybe we can move this down to proposal, you know,
Yeah.
the end or something like that, you know, because, you know, okay, this is all recorded, so it's not, you know, but one interesting option might be that what if this were just a weird idea, just in terms of order. What if this were put before reconciliation? You know? That we're saying it's not only pulling it, it's not just a part of the process, it is the process, you know. It almost sounds like what we were trying to get, possibly part of what we were trying to get at with you know, we really mean it principle at the end that we had to ditch.
Yeah, I like it better in that order than coming last.
I actually don't like it better, and it seems even more redundant.
Does it?
Yeah, to me, because I'm trying to kind of think about all the scenarios where the principle of continuous reconciliation doesn't already imply, given its current wording, that the desired state always wins. So the agent is always observing state, it's
Yeah.
applying the desired state. If there's any other input of configuration, whether human, whether any other file that was applied, anything else is going to modify the actual system state that the agent is observing, and the agent is going to apply the desired state, which is declared, and therefore single source of truth. But the question is, are we trying to communicate something more than the source of truth? Are we trying to communicate something in terms of visibility into a system from a single data repository? Anything that goes beyond just precedence of configuration, of applying configuration? Is there anything else that would be incorporated into that?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it really is just desired state wins. That's how we operate a GitOps system, is we change desired state, because that's the source of truth.
And then I think the principle of continuously reconciled at this point already speaks to that.
What if we say attempt to apply only the desired state? Nah, that doesn't really add very much, does it? All right, I'm gonna kill this, or at least put it down below, and perhaps delete it. But for now, just like we can like just move it out of. Okay, I agree with you for now.
Okay, so principle 5, any shocking revelations? Did we find out that principle 5 was somebody's brother in planning something?
I think the one item that we still quite haven't covered is this whole idea of what happens when the attempts fail.
Mm-hmm.
Which is I have alert and divergence item that you mentioned on the original principles,
Yeah.
and that right now is not covered, right? Like what happens? This is kind of like the escape hatch, right? You've got all these 4 principles, but what happens if some doesn't work? What is the principle that we can use to guide our decisions in that scenario?
Yeah, I think that was the question, right? Is whether that should be, you know, noted during the reconciliation piece, similarly to how it was like way back in this version, you know, or whether it should be part of the closed loop, because that's what happens when that's part of a feedback system, you know, and that feedback could mean multiple things. I mean, the main thing it means primarily is notifications, but there was another case where, for example, like stop after X number of attempts and notify or something like that. I mean, I guess it's all around notification so far. But really, like that's part of, in my understanding, that's like what the closed loop idea was about. Like, and just to go back to the prior art thing, this literally, this was like important enough to be a principle for the group as the group was getting started. This version of the GitOps principles, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just I think this includes like alerting. It just doesn't say so. Just as actions are performed. Honestly, I don't know if changing the language really does anything. I guess like the reason I was thinking that initially we could say like, simply, it already said actions are initiated when there's divergence, right, between these states. And I think what I was trying to do is clarify what even is meant by a closed loop, because it seems like not everyone really got that.
I almost want to rephrase it to just say any other interaction with the actual system state should be minimized. Like, because that's kind of what we're really saying is like nothing about this says exclusive. But maybe if you just said continuously reconciled and exclusively attempt to, I don't know.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, but like that like if I understand correctly, like that's not really.
That's
I mean,
not the point of a closed loop.
Well, not really. No, it's not like air gap, whereas the source of truth thing down below, that's almost what you're saying right now. That there's only one way to do this.
Yeah, good point.
Ultimately, whereas I mean, it's funny because these bleed together a bit, right? But like that's just what I was thinking, is that like the point of the closed loop is that it's not an open loop. It's not just a dumb application. It's one that takes into account feedback from the
Yeah, but we just couldn't figure out what that feedback would be, right?
Yeah. Here's a weird example that I wonder what you'll think means in terms of closed loop. And I kind of hinted at something similar to this, but this is kind of like a real world thing. With Flux, if I have two customizations, K2 and K1, and K2 depends on K1, okay? I apply K1, it's good. I apply K2 that depends on K1, it's all good. I remove K1, meaning the dependency that K2 depends on is gone.
How do you remove it?
Helm delete. No, actually, I removed it from the start state.
Okay.
It's gone. Okay, so at that point, K2 is going to enter into a state that says dependency missing. And any changes that I introduce to the repo that is the source of K2 are not going to be applied because the dependency is missing.
Wait, any changes won't be applied?
That's the behavior of Flux as it stands. This is like real world thing. Okay, I applied 2, I remove K1, K2 is pointing to some repo, some path, and I'm introducing more changes to that repo.
I hear what you're saying. You're saying it just can't be applied because it will fail because the dependency
it assumes it will fail. It will stop reconciling that.
Oh, I see what you mean, because each time it tries to apply it, it'll notice that this service is failing.
That dependency is no, it's not even noticing that the service that there was anything failing. It's just saying K2 depends on K1. K1 is gone. So I'm gonna stop reconciling K2. That's Flux's current behavior.
I think that's not just Flux. I mean, I think it's like if the dependency is part of, did you say K2?
Yeah, like with
Yeah,
just
if
pick
dependency
A,
is
B,
part
whatever,
of-
right? If
yeah, if
B
the-
depends on A, B doesn't have A anymore,
Yeah, if the
changes to B
dependency,
are not reconciled.
right. So if the dependency is declared in K2, that's part of the declaration that's attempting to be applied. So if it doesn't exist, it's going to fail. I mean, I don't know. That's just,
Uh-huh.
I don't know that
so-
has anything to do with,
Yeah, because
Yeah, cool.
now, what would this principle mean should happen? It means that the system should override your desired state declaration that you don't want K1 in there, and you like that it has to resolve paradoxes because
Yeah.
That's basically the question. Like what would a closed loop, how would a closed loop operate in that scenario? Would a closed loop mean that, like, how do we close the loop for K2 when something that K2's state did not modify is actually no longer letting K2 reconcile?
I mean,
and
I don't think we have to define that as long as, I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't think we have to define that as long as we state that this is the source of, that the desired state is the source of truth, because whatever it does, that's kind of not our business. It's up to the software agents and how they're written. You know, like Dan can go write a software agent right now that does something kind of different. And, you know, as long as the software agent follows that Dan just wrote, follows the principles, he can make it do whatever he wants. He can make it send like a Christmas card to my mom, you know? I mean, that would be fine. We don't have to say exactly what it does.
we didn't say it had to be good at attempting to fix the problem.
Yeah.
We just says it has to attempt it.
Yeah, ultimately, right, exactly. So there, you know, there may be, so for example, in a reconciler that, I don't know, uses, let's say, like service catalog, a service catalog concept, you know, it may attempt to, I mean, a particular control or a software agent, right, may attempt to say, hey, look, something broke in the network. I'm going to go back to the API for this cloud provider and say, I need that network connection. You know, it may do those kinds of things. That's not unlikely at all.
But I still don't understand if the agreement here is that, for instance, in the scenario where a dependency breaks because of a modification to a different desired state for a different part of the system, because nowhere we're delineating that there has to be a single desired state that is comprehensive of everything that is built into the system.
Yeah, we didn't say there has to be only one source. We just said
Right.
it has to be
like declared, it has to be immutable, blah, 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 but there could be numerous desired states for a single system, right? So,
well, that's an interesting observation, but I don't know that we can. That's a good question. I mean, I don't know that that hasn't come up so far.
This is the meta stuff. No, this is the meta state that we talked about last week, which is like if I have a desired state that I want this thing to be released as part of a canary release.
Yeah.
It follows certain metrics and it fails those metrics. So it does a rollback. That's a meta state that I've described with my desired state. I've said, I want this thing deployed, but in case it doesn't meet these metrics, I want this other thing deployed.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's still a desired state, but it is sort of a meta state.
That's a really good example. That's a very good example. And that's what Flagger does, for example, and that's what other tools that work with GitOps that leverage deployment strategies. I mean, there aren't very many that are, you know, but so I think that's
Argo
why.
Rollout says that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Exactly. Right. So that's a good example of why we want to keep that closed loop principle, you know, because otherwise.
I'm not sure it is because.
Why is that?
Because, well, operating in a closed loop could mean, if we said something about metastate, maybe if we want to make a point about metastate, that's something we could do. But I kind of think that's also in a way covered by how we've described the state all the way up and down here. Because if you don't have this in here, in the glossary, you can explain what desired state means, and desired state can include meta state. It can include like attempt X, and if not, fall back to Y. Apply security policy. Apply whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
As
Yeah,
long as they're done in a declarative way and they're not done in an imperative way, then it's fine, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be described in different places, right?
I'm so confused with something. So
Yeah.
the example that Dan just gave, you have in your desired state a policy, okay? You add to your desired state something that breaks that policy, all right? You have, don't allow certain types of objects in the namespace or something, right? So you have a policy that denies that, and you add something to your desired state that actually breaks that policy. And you push that to your desired state. What should a closed loop system do in that scenario?
Whatever your software agents are programmed to say that they should do, based on
So
that.
the closed loop means you do whatever.
Well,
that's what I'm trying
not
to-
just whatever. This is just defining a set of practices that have grown over the last, I don't know, however long, 20 years or whatever, you know? So it's like what we should do. We know generally what we should do. We should either stop the works and send out notifications so a human can resolve it. We should automatically roll back to the last working version. We should, there are different deployment strategies, right?
But all of those things should be part of the declared.
Exactly. Yeah.
The declared desired state.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, there was a discussion that I brought up like kind of a long time ago about saying that the wording for our old principle 5 should say something like that that the rules for what controllers, or sorry, software agents do should be contained in the desired state.
So would it be something along the lines of that agents should be able to handle any failure during continuous reconciliation?
Not
Or agents
necessarily.
should, no, right?
Yeah. Just initiate different actions. And we can't really describe what all those actions are because we only can envision the ones that we know about, but there may be other actions that are initiated. I mean, who knows? Next year, maybe the big craze, there might be a new deployment strategy that no one's ever thought about. But yeah, honestly, so far these closed loop things say it. I think they may not clarify it in the way that we're describing. But so, for example, the first one, different actions are initiated depending on input from the desired and actual states. What that's really the reason that I initially thought that would be a good way to put it, and it doesn't seem very clear now that we're talking about it, right? At least it doesn't seem to have automatically communicated that to you. But that input from the desired states it would be your rules for what it should do, and input from the actual states would be the feedback from the system itself, making it a closed loop. I don't know that that's a really great way to say it, but that's really close to what we have had all along. Oops. So that's why.
We are at time, by the way. I have 10 more minutes and then I'll be getting a phone call. So as soon as I get that phone call, I got to jump.
Well, I think at this point, it seems that there is really still a lot of ambiguity as to what the closed loop thing is. And I would even argue that if it's so complex to make sense of, it's likely not a principle. And I would say, is there anything else that you want to cut, like other than principle 5, anything else that we need to look over principles 1 through 4, or are we happy with those? Admittedly, saying we are not covering notifications when something can't be done. Are
I-
1 through 4 good?
I feel really good about 1 through 4, and I would be, if
Yeah.
if we're willing to say, what we're proposing is the principles. Here are 2 ideas that we have not included, but we'd like to hear from you if you think that these are strong enough that they actually should be included as their own descriptive thing. And we can include kind of those 2 principles that are on the cutting room floor with all the notes on them, and see if people come back with strong feelings. But I would be fine with that.
I agree with that. Do we think that the community
Oh.
input that we've received is all inclusive in the principles 1 through 4 at this point?
Except for except for like, intelligent response and notifications. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So I tried to write down what we said at the end, like after we got off, and that's what this little paragraph is about. These are just the questions from this, like but I didn't write back the notifications.
And you know what, when I think about notifications, I think that's also kind of like implementation specific. I think what we're really talking about here is that agents should have a mechanism to escalate to humans when things are beyond its control.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
that is, whether create a pull request saying, you know what, your version is wrong, I'm going to create a pull request to switch it back to the version that actually did work, or I need your help, or you know what I'm saying, like there's got to be an escalation, like a premeditated, that's not a word I'm looking for, but a kind of premeditated escalation. Agents should have a premeditated escalation mechanism.
Yeah.
Deliberate, that's the word that I'm looking for. There should be a deliberate escalation mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to put the word notifications in there, right? This is a little bit long, but I think you're right, Dan, right? Is this what you were writing? Or yeah, I think you're right. This is exactly. So this sentence, this paragraph right over here, this is super accurate, but it's super dry. And I don't think it's going to convey anything. It's just basically like explaining control theory. So like, I'm going to just like delete all this shit because I think this is really what we mean, exactly what you wrote. So I'm happy with sending this to, well, also, okay, minus the question about the source of truth, I'm happy with sending all of this to, just as it is, to the maintainers for feedback for RC1. We're basically saying, we've got all of these things. Do you think this is required?
Yep, I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah. And I think it's justified because we've got that already in.
Yeah, and I would say both of these other 2 ideas are contained within the first 4 principles. The question is, are they stated explicitly enough given their importance? That would be the thing that I'd love to have the feedback on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the closed loop is in there. I mean, you can run just the 4 principles and come out with the understanding that it's operated in a closed loop, that there's a feedback mechanism, that you can have policies and all that stuff, that the source of truth is there. All of those things can be understood from the first 4 principles.
Well, only if at the end of continuously reconciled, you add something like this. Pre-defined, like if we do that, then it's contained in there, but otherwise we don't say anything about what happened, like that it should even do anything.
We don't say it, but all of those things are part of the desired state. meta state. Would you read the first four principles and come away thinking about meta state? Probably not.
Yeah.
But if you
Also-
explain it in the glossary, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think what we're really saying is that configurations for the agents themselves can live in the desired state. You know.
Well, anyway, don't put that in right now.
No, I
Um,
won't.
yeah.
I'll just leave that out.
Perfect.
And so do you think we have a problem with sending this to the maintainers for the
Nope,
rest of the
I feel
maintainers?
great about it.
Okay. Awesome. So then we have achieved our goal. So now
Now you're ready to check the third box.
yeah, there we go. All right, awesome. We went
All
over
right.
the minutes, but we achieved the goal, so that's great. And we'll get a round of feedback from the maintainers pretty rapidly, you know, at least for RC1, because that's the goal. And GitOps is coming up quickly. So.
Fantastic. Well done, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right,
Awesome.
yeah, but to both of you too. Excellent. Okay,
Right.
you know,
Cool.
Yeah.
See you. Bye.
see you soon.